welcome to my video podcast where I like to share my making adventure with a variety of different crafts, including knitting and crochet. I also have a little bit of cross stitch today. My name is Catherine. I live in the rural Midwest of the USA with my husband and our 2 young daughters. I am a mother, I am a teacher, and I am a knitter. Today is November 18th for context. So we are in the fall/winter transition, and I think the high today is at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which is lovely for the middle of November. I like to start off, I have a traditional podcast set up, and I like to start off with what I'm wearing. I shared this in an earlier episode, but this is my coloring book tee by Aimee Sher Designs, or Aimee Sher Makes. And this is my first knit garment first one that I ever made. It is a fingering weight. I did a short sleeve version, and I did one color. The design allows for a second color, which kind of like stripes, almost like a crayon, like how crayons have little stripes around the paper part of them. So a little bit of a stripe here and at the bottom. I chose not to do that since I was such a beginner, and so then I could only invest in one yarn. This yarn that I used was Hobie Mixo Delight, I think. Oh, I'm gonna forget. But it is 4 strands of cotton that is not very well twisted together. So there's not twist. It's just 4 cotton strings that you work together, which gives it like a beautiful color, but was kind of a challenge sometimes when knitting with it. I love this. It's 100% cotton, so I wash it in the washing machine. And I pop it in the dryer if it has grown too wide. So, but otherwise, I'm very happy. I think it used around 300 grams. So I have some leftovers that I'm making plans for after the holiday season. I hope to pick up this yarn back up and knit something else with it. So I'm excited about that. All right. I also have a few finally finished objects to share with you today. I have 2 of the Christmas sweaters all the way done. So this, I believe the smallest size was almost done on my last podcast. It's a little pill. Thought it was a end sticking out, but it was a pill. This is my youngest daughter's Christmas sweater that I knit for her with Knit Picks Swish DK, and I did Andrea Mowry's Bean and Olive pattern. This is the size 2, and last time all I had left was to take back and redo some of the bind offs. So I really struggled with getting a stretchy enough bind off following the pattern, which said to do an in pattern bind off, like knit the knits and purl the purls and slip one over all the way around. But that wasn't as stretchy as the sweater at all. It probably only stretched, like, actually came in a lot. Even though I sized up my needles, did all the things, it was still too tight. So I picked that back and I did a Latvian bind off. I'd also tried a 2x2 tubular bind off on one of the sleeves, and I did not like the way that it looked. I felt like the neckline where it has 2x2 ribbing has a straight edge start. It's not a tubular or provisional start. So I decided I was okay with kind of a straighter edged bind off on the other ones, and I like it a lot. It was super easy. It's a sewn bind off, but it's easier than a typical tubular bind off. It gives a straight edge. I'm super happy with it. I think this looks really nice. My color work tension was maybe a little bit tight up here, but overall was pretty good for this sweater. I struggled a lot more the second time I knit it. This is the same pattern, the same yarn, just a different color for the contrast, and this is a size 5. My tension struggled a lot more here. I must not have been focused enough on trying to be a loose knitter. You can maybe even tell up here how much the tension struggled. But I decided it was good enough. Also, my daughter that this was for asked for the big hearts on the sleeves instead of the baby hearts. So I was able to make that work for her. And I also did the Latvian bind off for her. They have worn them a couple times. They are kids, so they're very active. I find that they are riding up a lot for them at the bottom. So there's a lot of like pilling in the arm and in that area where it's rubbing a lot, and the up and the down of trying to pull it down over their stomach a lot. I knit these significantly longer than the pattern called for, and it's still riding up a lot. So maybe it's riding up because I knit it longer, but I didn't knit it wider or something. I don't know. But I didn't want their bellies to show. So I made them longer for them so that they would fit them good. Fit them well. Other than the riding up, I'm really pleased. Nothing is ever perfect. I'm a pretty new knitter. So I think that this is a big win for them. They love wearing them. Actually, my daughter asked if she could wear hers today, and I was like, actually, I need it to film. So she can wear it tomorrow if she wants, or Monday, or when she gets home a little bit. So yeah, those are their Christmas sweaters. And I'm still sort of in progress figuring out what I'm going to knit for my husband next. Also for fun, another quick little finished object is I knit a dishcloth with a bunch of scrap yarns. I was holding 2 colors together, and whenever one color ran out, I just changed to another. The goal was to keep it sort of greeny, but I ran out of green colors. So at the end here, I even have pink and blue. So this, I think I did in a day or 2. It was really nice. Just like clear the needles project that I did. I had also embroidered my sister another dish towel, but I gave it to her for her birthday without taking a picture of it. So I asked her to send me a picture of it, and we'll see if I get that. I may figure out how to put it here, but that seems unlikely because I haven't yet been able to figure out how to add in content. Not that I've spent a lot of time trying to figure it out, but yeah, I think that my embroidering skills are improving slightly, and it was fun. It was hard to get started on it again. I just wanted to pick up my knitting, and I had to make myself pick up the embroidery. But once I was going, I enjoyed it, and it was fun to watch the, watch the color come in and make the picture. So those are 2 little projects that I also finished since I last filmed an update. So that, oh my gosh, I keep kicking the desk I'm sitting at. That is all of my finished objects. So now we can transition to works in progress. I have 4 works in progress to share today. So the first one is the Musselburgh hat that I was working on last time. Now I did end up completely frogging it and starting over. I was having a couple problems with it. One was that I was not feeling motivated to work on a fingering weight project. I wasn't enjoying the pace of the growth of the project. And the second was that my needles, like the project was too big to work magic loop, but I didn't have small enough needles to just work it regular. So I found that I wasn't working on it. Then I got this yarn, which is just black. My husband actually dyed this. The goal was to make charcoal, but the black dye does not lighten to charcoal. Anyway, I found that I had this that I could use alongside of the yarn I had previously been using, which is a Knit Picks Stroll. And that together, I thought that they would look pretty good. It would still give the overall effect of like a blackish hat, but 2 fingering weights together would make more of a decayed gauge, and that was more appealing to me. So rip back to that, and I was also considering ordering like some cheaper but smaller circumference fixed needles for hats, but then I saw, I think just on Instagram, and I don't know who posted it, about working what they called a traveling loop rather than magic loop. So I did the crown still using magic loop, where I have half the stitches on each needle. But once the crown was finished, it is just like too many stitches for my longest cord to do magic loop well. So then I started doing a traveling loop. So essentially, I think I can show you in case you're unfamiliar with this. It also might have another name. One of the needles is connected to all of the stitches, and you pull the cord tight. You have one loop here, and you work stitches across onto this needle, and then you pull the cord through so that all the stitches are together again, and you go again. I don't have like a set number of stitches I do before I pull the cord through. I just work until it feels uncomfortable, and then I pull the cord through and start traveling again. Start a new loop. So I think I'm probably doing that 5 or 6 times to do one round. So there's more needle manipulation, but the knitting experience is a lot better than it was before when I was trying to like squish it onto a magic loop and make sure that the stitches didn't accidentally go together, that I was leaving a little loop. So it was a better experience. However, when I worked it this time, I did make sure to follow the stitch count for a thicker gauge, but I had worked, you know, down to about here, and I had my husband try it on. I haven't woven that in yet. I thought about doing that before filming. And I had knit down to about here, and I had him try it on, and he was like, is it gonna get tighter? And I was like, no. And he was feeling like it was just a little bit looser than he wanted his hat. So I was frustrated because I did feel like I had followed the pattern pretty well. But I just decided that I would add in some ribbing for the brim, and I'm hoping that this is gonna work out. So I decided to add the ribbing for the brim, and I'm now back to working stockinette. So it was really difficult to decide like how much ribbing to knit because I know like when he's wearing it, it's gonna be less. He wants a pretty fat brim. He's like, I want it to cover my whole ear, top to bottom. So I'm hoping that this will work. I'm planning on, like I measured, I don't remember what it was, but I measured from when I finished the crown to when I started the ribbing, and that was like a set measurement. So I'll put another stitch marker in here where I started the stockinette, and I'll knit the same amount so that the stockinette parts will match, which will mean that it will just be folded in the middle of the ribbing, and he can fold up his brim from there. So that's my update on my Musselburgh. I restarted it on November 4th. So that would be about 2 weeks ago. I feel like with one more week I will have it done. Especially now that it's just back to stockinette. That's a little bit faster and a little bit easier on my hands. So I can knit for a little bit longer at one time. Also, like all of the decisions have been made. I just have to follow what I did on the first half now. Whereas I was making a lot of decisions in this section for if I wanted to do the ribbing, if I wanted to frog back and do one less decrease. And I decided to do the ribbing, and then it was like, how long do you do the ribbing? Is this long enough? Is this long enough? Is this long enough? Try it on 7 million times and try to get it folded the right way. So now we're on the home stretch in regards to decision making. I did find that with the traveling loop, I wonder if you can see that, some of my ribbing, I can't even find it now. I can't find it on the camera. Some of my ribbing was getting like stretched out funny. There's a knit stitch there that is stretched out funny. So I try to start, like when I'm pulling my cord through and restarting, I try to do that only in between 2 purls. So I was doing 2 by 2 ribs. So knit, knit, purl, and then pull my needle and then purl again, because the purl stitches are hidden more in the ribbing. And so if they got a little bit wonky, I didn't feel like it would impact the look of the project as much. So yeah. Oh, and I am now using 3.75 or US size 5 needles after I recast on with the 2 fingering weights held double. This pure black one is significantly thinner than the Knit Picks Stroll. I don't know, I wonder if I can. I feel like I can tell. I feel like it's obvious that the one is smaller than the other. But it doesn't, I mean, obviously it doesn't matter when you knit them up, but for what it's worth about the yarn. All right, and I have that project sitting inside of a new project. So I have a lot of this yarn, which is from, I just watched a whole video on how to pronounce the name of it. Hobie, which is an online yarn shop for me. They sold 50-gram cotton balls in 20 packs for a really good deal. At one point, I ordered 2 of them. So I had a ton of this 50-gram Cotton King. They call it soft prints. So it's sort of like a lightly, I don't know if you can tell in that one, a lightly variegated colorway. All of them have a variety of colors, but it's not striped, not like super variegated, just lightly. Some of them are more than others, lightly changing. And I have been using them to make my dishcloths, but I also wanted to make like a little tote project bag out of them. So I went on their website and I found a pattern for it's fingering weight, so 4/8 cotton yarn. I found a pattern for a tone in tone fade tote bag, and I decided to try it. I'm mostly following the pattern. However, the pattern called for 4 colors and it called for 2 balls of the first color, and I didn't have any of that. So I picked 5 colors and I tried to split the directions between those first 2 colors and then use my other 3. However, with that, I don't think I did a very good job with that, because I ended up with quite a bit of this navy left over and quite a bit of this left over. But the 3rd color I did, I must have already started the ball, because I have, so here are my first 2 colors and how much I have left over. More navy than this other one. This is how much I had left over of my 3rd color. So I'm not sure what happened. And then this is how much I had left over of my 4th color. So you'll notice then that means that I'm currently working with my 5th color. And I actually used this for a bit on the dishcloth. So I'm hoping that I don't run out of this. And this little tote has handles, but like I should have already put the handles in according to the pattern, I think. I must have done something wrong in working the colors. So I'm going to add a 6th color, which will just be white or gray. I don't know if this is a light gray or a white. I will add this after I get to the time to add in the next new color, and then I will follow the directions for the handles at that point, because the handles start like as you're fading in the last color. That's my current plan for that. Otherwise, it's been an enjoyable crochet project. I am finding that my wrist is getting more sore crocheting with the cotton yarn. So I've been having to take breaks. I started this last weekend, so it's been about a week of working on it. I have this much. I like it. It feels like the circumference of it is larger than I expected from the pattern. So, but I did follow the increasing directions the same, and I'm using the same hook that they recommend. The yarn is actually a different cotton yarn than the pattern calls for. However, it should be close to the same weight. So I'm not sure. I would guess that my gauge changed a lot when I went from increasing to doing this basket weave stitch. And it just kept getting bigger for a while because my gauge was increasing rather than starting to come straight up. However, I think it will be a nice little project bag for holding multiple cakes of yarn that I might be using for the same project, and keeping them kind of upright while also making my project accessible. This is sort of what I have going on here with my Musselburgh. So, work in progress number 2, crochet tote bag, a non-knitting project. All right, my 3rd work in progress is my Ranunculus. Which I have split for sleeves, about 1 inch. This pattern is by Midori Hirose, and I decided to cast on because of the knit along that the Fruitful Hands, Diana and Katie, and Amber from A Lovely Yarn are doing. I wanted to join the knit along. I had this Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool that I purchased a while ago to try it out. This is the color Oatmeal, and I wanted to see if I could make it work for the Ranunculus. And I was concerned because the pattern calls for size 8 needles. No, size 10, US size 10. I do not know the millimeters for that because the largest needles I have are size 8s. And those are 5mm needles. So I decided to just knit it on my 8s and make modifications as I went to try to make it fit me. It was probably a bad idea, but there's no guarantee that it would have met gauge even if I had purchased size 10 needles. And I have ChowGoo interchangeable needles. So to purchase size 10 needles, I would have had to purchase the needle tips and a cord. And I usually, like when I'm working the yoke, go through different cords as I'm going, even though I can do magic loop for a variety of them. If I can avoid magic loop, like there's usually a stage between like when you can work magic loop, but then magic loop, your cord is like too short for magic loop, but too long to knit in the round. Anyway, I felt like it would have been a significant investment to get size 10 needles and then still not know that I would meet gauge for the project. And this was supposed to be kind of a fun, cheap knit along project. So I did not order size 10 needles. I just went with the 8s. It was tricky. I did calculations once I measured my gauge, like after all the lace work, I measured my gauge, maybe like in the lace work when there weren't increases. And I calculated like the number of stitches I would need to get like my ideal bust circumference at that gauge. And then I tried to figure out like which of the sizes, when the sizing doesn't start until after the lace work. So I didn't have to decide right away. I just cast on and I worked it as the pattern calls for until it was do these different things depending on your sizing. And so then I calculated that maybe I should try for the size 8. So I followed the directions for the size 8 and I tried it on before it called for splitting for sleeves, and it was like there were still inches in the underarm that were not going to connect even with the extra 6 stitches that you cast on. It was also like too short, like the yoke depth wasn't there and I didn't have the circumference enough. I also tried like the sleeves, and the sleeves were gonna be tight. I was like, this is not gonna work. But I felt like I had enough in the body. So I did additional increases only in the sleeves. And I once again like recalculated my stitch gauge, how many stitches do I want in each sleeve, and that was not lining up with the size 8. My body measurements lined up with the size 8, but not the sleeve measurements. So I added additional stitches to the sleeves, which also then lengthened my yoke depth, and it fits now. I am worried that it's going to be bunchy, but I haven't blocked it, and it's lace work, so I know that lace will like block out. Did I block it? Now I have me questioning myself. I think I did block it. I think I did block the lace work. I haven't blocked it all, but I blocked the lace work before I measured my gauge to decide which size to knit. Anyway, at this point, this is the yarn I have left from my original skein of the Fisherman's Wool, and so I had to order more. I wasn't going to order more right when I started because I didn't know if it was going to work. And I didn't know how much yarn I was going to need since I'm knitting at such a tighter gauge than is called for in the pattern. So I've now ordered more yarn, and it was supposed to be here last week. Like maybe a week ago today, or maybe even last week. It was delayed by like 10 days. So now I'm supposed to get it on Monday. So this project has just been on hold, waiting for yarn. And I'm hoping that when the yarn comes, I'll be motivated. I am obviously worried about the colors matching or not matching, because it is, obviously there's like no way to get the same dye lot so far apart from each other. But it's commercially dyed yarn, so I'm hoping it's not as big of a deal. And I saved myself like enough that I could sort of fade it from one to the other, so hopefully it's not like it, even if they're just a little bit different, that should work. If they're a lot different, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So we'll see. I'm a little bit worried about that, but hopefully it won't be a big deal and I'll be able to pick back up and knit as soon as my other yarn gets here. So that is my Ranunculus on fisherman's wool. I have one more small work in progress. Oh wait, maybe I have a few more notes on my Ranunculus. Oh, I just wanted to note that, like, obviously all the lace stuff, all the lace stuff was mostly new for me. Like, I've done yarn overs, but I hadn't done any of this fancy stuff. But also the way that the pattern calls you to cast on the stitches in the underarm was new for me. And especially how you like cast on an extra stitch just so that you can cast one off and tighten up the gap. So I'm curious to see how that holds up as I keep going. All right, that's all on that. My last project is a teeny tiny little cross stitch. I have a bunch of these kits from like when I was in high school. I had 4 of them. I distinctly remember cross stitching this one while my siblings were at swimming lessons and I was too old for swimming lessons. But this one is also, I have this done and in there. And this one was started. So I just decided that I would pick it back up and keep going. It's a little bunny and a little sheep. Gratefully, past me did almost all of the white cross stitch because apparently I am now too old to enjoy cross stitching with white embroidery floss on a white background. But I mostly just have I have a lot of backstitch and black to do, and then I was gonna save, none of this has backstitching around it, and that will be more enjoyable for me than the backstitching, so I'm saving that part for the end. And then I don't know, I will probably try to turn these into little ornaments for our Christmas tree this year, or give them away to my siblings, my younger siblings. So we'll see. That's been a little bit of an enjoyable, easy, like, you know, the floss is all there, no decision making, just do what the pattern says, sort of a project. And clearing out the lingering works in progress from my youth along the way. So yeah, that is all the works in progress that I have. So I guess we will talk a little bit about some future plans as we're looking into what else I'm going to be making. My husband is trying to dye himself yarn for me to knit a sweater for him. So it's hard to get a good color, but we have done a lot of experimenting so far, and we're gonna keep trying until we can figure out something that he likes, and then I will get to make him a sweater. I'm not sure. I had originally been planning on doing the storm sweater by Petite Knit. I also really want to knit the Stick Season sweater by Rebecca Clow of the Crochet. And so I'm considering doing that one instead of the storm sweater, now that that one has been released. We'll see. Probably depends on what color he ends up landing on. I will be motivated. I feel like the storm sweater would not be good in a really dark color, but the Stick Season sweater would be good if the color is kind of dark. So that's where we're at. That's what I'm planning on doing. I also went to my library had a craft supply exchange, so you could drop off donations one week, and then the next week you could come and pick anything that was there that you wanted for free. And so I went looking for fun things, and I found this yarn, which is Fleischer's knitting yarn superior worsted knitting all virgin wool. And I have 2 packages, and each package is 4 ounces of yarn. So it's a worsted weight yarn. Actually, really interesting. I mean, it looks sort of vintage. So I decided to do some research on that company, and I found like a lot of neat things out about it. I'm guessing this yarn was produced in the 50s or 60s in the United States. So that was pretty cool. I'm thinking I might make like, I don't have a pattern in mind, but I might like to make like a balaclava. I like to walk in the mornings and it's cold. So something like that. Out of that wool, it's all black, so more black yarn to knit with. And it's only 8 ounces total. So, and it's worsted weight. I'm not sure what I can knit with that. So that was one of the things I have been thinking of. If you have other ideas or recommendations, since it's so old, I don't want to open it until I'm ready to knit with it. So I don't actually know how soft it is, which is probably silly. I should probably open it so I can tell like if I want it against my face or not before I decide what to knit with it. Another thing is I have a lot of leftover yarn from my girls' sweaters. That's the stuff I actually used for their sweaters, but I also ordered 2 additional colors at one point to see if I wanted those for the sweaters instead. And so I'm thinking that they would make good like mittens and hats for the girls as well. If you have any pattern recommendations for like little toddler mittens, I'm all ears, because all of these scraps could make some cute little hats and mittens, and that would be fun, probably fairly quick little projects to do for them for this winter. But yeah, I need small, like baby toddler sizes. So yeah, those are my future plans. I hope that you are working on something fun. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, God bless.